This is Redstone, a sector of Minecraft that often goes unexplored because it seems too complex for most players. By the end of this series, however, you'll be saying in unison with Mumbo Jumbo that it really is quite simple. Let's get started. Every redstone circuit has an input and an output. In this design, the lever is the input and the lamp is our output. This video is mostly going to be focused on the logic in between. Here, the logic just says, take the redstone signal that this lever creates and move it through this redstone wire into this lamp. As you can see, when we turn the lever, it turns on the redstone, which turns on the lamp. Over here, we have the most common inputs. We have, of course, the lever, as we've seen, but then we have buttons. The stone one lasts 1 second, the wooden lasts 1.5 seconds. Pressure plates can be activated by players or mobs, and wooden pressure plates can be activated by items. The way that we wire redstone is pretty simple. We just take it from the input and move it to the output. And as you can see, that turns on just fine. However, there is a limitation with using solid blocks like we're doing here, and that's that you can't go through blocks. Normally, when we place redstone on top of a block, it'll connect to any redstone below that and go up a block. You can't go up multiple blocks with redstone, but you can go up one block, and that works. But if we put a block in between, it cuts off the signal, and this lamp doesn't get turned on. However, we don't have that problem with transparent blocks. We can wire this up just fine, and that will turn on the lamp. However, this leads to another problem. You can't send signals downwards with transparent blocks. If we were to put redstone here, it looks like it should connect up, but it just doesn't, which is probably just a quirk in Minecraft's code and something that they just never fixed, and now it's a feature. If you did want to send a signal downward, you'd have to use a solid block like this. Transparent blocks include glass as you'd expect, but they also include partial blocks like leaves and slabs, as well as most light sources and redstone components. Now, sending signals is all fine and dandy until the redstone signal runs out, after exactly 15 blocks. So what can we do about this? We have to use a redstone repeater. All you have to do is put this on any block that's being powered, and it will create a new signal that will last another 15 blocks. And as you can see, that will turn on the lamp with the input from here. So repeaters can extend signals, but they also add delay. If we were to turn this on, you can't really see it, but it adds 1/10 of a second of delay before the lamp turns on. The 1/10 of a second comes from redstone ticks. There's a difference between redstone ticks and game ticks. Game ticks happen every 1/20th of a second, and those are used in technical Minecraft. With redstone, we only ever deal with redstone ticks, which happen every 10th of a second. So anytime I say 1 tick, that's just 1/10 of a second. By default, repeaters have 1 tick of delay, but if we pull the torch back just by clicking on the repeater, this has 2 ticks of delay, this has 3 ticks of delay, and this has 4 ticks of delay, which is the maximum that a repeater can have. And if you click on it again, it just goes back to 1 tick. While this doesn't do much on its own, if you have a bunch of repeaters like this, then it adds a ton of delay. Exactly how much though? If we multiply 4 ticks per repeater, since these are all at their maximum, times 7 repeaters, we get 28 ticks or 2.8 seconds. So all you really need to do in chains of repeaters like this is do 4 times the number of repeaters, and then divide that by 10. You'll notice here that we don't have repeaters on the corners. That's because repeaters only act in straight lines, so we have to have either redstone on the corners, or we can put a block there. This is how you send power through blocks. All you need to do is power the block from one side, and then take the power from a different side. It could actually be from this side. We could even have a lamp going around it. But what this means is that powered blocks will turn on components around them. We can see that a little better in this demonstration. Here, this redstone lamp is powered by this lever, and that turns on this piece of redstone. Remember, powered blocks turn on redstone components around them. We could even have a piece of redstone underneath, and that would get turned on. So blocks can be powered by levers. They can also be powered by redstone dust being either on top of them or pointing into them. And as you can see, these powered lamps will turn on the lamps by them, but notice that these aren't actually powered. They're just turned on, so you can't put another lamp there and expect it to work. Powered blocks don't power the blocks around them, they simply turn them on. The reason these two lamps aren't on is because no piece of redstone is on top of them, pointing at them, and there's no powered blocks next to them. To get them to turn on, we could put redstone on top, but that's ugly, so I'm going to remove it for now. But now we get to another problem. This block is powered. In fact, we could show that by taking redstone components that turn on as an output. However, it doesn't turn on this piece of redstone. That's because this block is considered soft powered, because it's powered by redstone dust. If we powered it with either a repeater, or if we took a different input, then it would be considered hard powered, and this piece of redstone turns on. But soft powered blocks don't send signals to redstone dust. Since they send signals to repeaters, all we need to do is replace this with a repeater, and that will work. You can also make this block hard powered by using a repeater here. And since this block is powered, that turns on the redstone lamp right here. That was a lot to digest, but all it means is that you can send signals through blocks, but only one block at a time, and you can't send signals from redstone through a block to redstone. And when I say redstone here, I just mean redstone dust. And one last thing to mention is that you can't power transparent blocks. If we were to replace this with concrete, that would send a signal to this piece of redstone, which would activate this lamp. One last thing to talk about with repeaters is that you can lock them. If we have one repeater running to the side of another and we turn it on, then this repeater will become locked, and it will no longer accept signals from the back. Likewise, if we have the repeater on while it's locked, then it will no longer turn off when this redstone line turns off. This is honestly pretty niche, but I just wanted to let you know, just in case you're wondering why you suddenly gained bedrock on your repeater and it doesn't work anymore. Now let's move on to redstone torches. These, unlike dust and repeaters, are powered by default, and they will send signals to all redstone around them, and they will power the block above them. You can think of them like a signal inverter. When this is on, it powers the block that the redstone torch is on, which turns the torch off. So as long as this lever is on, the lamp is off. If the lever is off, the lamp is on, because the torch is on by default. This works in exactly the same way, but I just wanted to show that you can power the block it's on, whether the torch is on top or on the side of the block. However, this doesn't work. You can't directly power the torch, you have to power the block that the torch is on. Because torches turn on by default, it leads to a bit of a quirk. When the torch is on, it powers this piece of redstone, which turns the torch off. Once the torch is off, there's nothing to power this piece of redstone, so it turns off. And then there's nothing that's powering this block, so the torch turns back on. All of that just means that it goes in an infinite cycle and constantly flashes the torch. For whatever reason, Mojang didn't want this, so after a while, the torch burns out. The torch is still usable afterwards, and in fact, this is useful in a lot of redstone contraptions, but I just wanted to let you know about this because it is a problem with a lot of redstone contraptions that I build. One reason that this works is that the redstone torch takes one tick to turn on, and it takes another tick to turn off after it stops receiving power. But the redstone lamp takes 2 ticks to turn off when it stops receiving power, so you don't actually see the redstone lamp change, even though this is flashing a bunch. Now we can move on to logic gates. These are used everywhere in computer science, but of course, that's complicated stuff. All we really care about is that these are useful in redstone contraptions. So our first gate is the OR gate. This is really, really simple. If you power one of these levers, the lamp turns on. Wow, that's crazy. This is a NOT gate. It's basically the definition of a redstone torch. Turn this on, the signal turns off. Turn this off, the signal turns on. But here we get to a much more interesting one. This is an AND gate. Both of these torches are powering this piece of redstone. So we have to power both of these levers to get this piece of redstone to turn off. That means that this piece of redstone is only off when both of these levers are on. So we put another redstone torch or a NOT gate, whatever you want to call it, and that turns on this lamp only when these 2 levers are on. And the final thing we'll look at before this mysterious black box is redstone clocks. Now these clocks aren't going to tell the time, but they'll instead flash a signal in a controlled way so that we can use them in redstone contraptions. Our first redstone clock is this one, which simply uses 2 repeaters connected to redstone. This works because this repeater powers this repeater after 2 ticks. After 2 ticks, this repeater also runs out of signal, so this is the only one that's powered. And then this repeater does the exact same thing with this repeater, so it constantly goes in a loop. One limitation of this design is that it requires a very specific input. We have to flash this for just a second, or else this will happen. This happens because this repeater powers this one while it's being powered by this one, so the signal never runs out in either repeater. This is also a reason why you couldn't use a 3-tick repeater and a 2-tick repeater. These have to be of the same length, or else by the time this is done sending a signal, it will have received this signal so it never turns off. If we have 2 3-tick delay repeaters though, this works out just fine. Our next clock is much easier to use in redstone contraptions. This uses a redstone torch, which as we know is on by default, which powers its own side, which means that it gets turned off. When the torch turns off, it unpowers this part of the circuit, and if there's nothing powering this block, then the torch turns on, and it just keeps looping like that forever. You can adjust this repeater, by the way, and in fact you could even add multiple repeaters. If we add more delay, that means the clock will take longer to go through one cycle. And we can add another repeater here to make it last even longer. However, we cannot make this repeater 1 tick, or else it will burn out the redstone torch. And finally we get to this mysterious black box. What could it contain? Well, that's for you to figure out, because this is our first redstone challenge, where you get to practice what we've learned throughout the episode. The objective of the challenge is to get a lamp which is turned on by default to turn off after exactly 2 seconds, or 20 ticks. We learned about 3 things in this video which all add delay. Torches add 1 tick of delay, redstone lamps turning off add 2 ticks of delay, and repeaters add 1 to 4 ticks depending on their state. This adds 1 tick, this adds 2, this adds 3, and this adds 4. This isn't meant to be a quiz, it's meant to be a way for you to practice your skills, because aside from, watching my videos, the best way for you to learn redstone is through practice. So for those of you who have put a good attempt into this challenge, I can now reveal the solution. Boom! I'll start with the end. The way that we power the lamp by default is by using a redstone torch. The lamp adds 2 ticks of delay and the torch adds 1, so we need 17 more ticks to add up to 20. And the way that we do that is through repeaters. We have 4 repeaters all at 4 ticks of delay, and that is 16 total, so we add 1 more for 17. And when we click the button, sure enough, after exactly 2 seconds this lamp turns off. Your solution almost certainly looks different from mine, and you might have gotten the solution wrong. And that's alright. Most of practice is honestly just getting things wrong and figuring out why. Every mistake is an opportunity to learn, and every time you learn you get better at redstone. And when you're ready to take your skills to the next level, I'll be talking about these in the next episode. See you there!